Welcome to the Ideal Investor Show. This is the podcast where we help you challenge your mindset and discover where you are. Tired of stories about other people's success? We can help you change your life, determine your time freedom point, and join us on the journey to financial success. Let's go. Hey everybody, how are you doing? I hope everybody is doing fine and you're enjoying the last pieces and parts of the summer. Today I wanted to bring something to your attention, and this is one of those episodes, and I have had a few of these lately, and I don't know exactly what happens, but I guess I'm getting more and more curious about some of the information that's out there, together with some of the opportunities that are out there, and I'm asking myself, how could that apply to my existing portfolio, to the portfolio of investments that our clients have? And I want you to also consider, how could it apply to you, or would it be a good idea? Now, you might ask yourself, well, what the heck is he talking about today? And the answer to that is I'm talking about build-to-rent properties. Now, you might actually say, oh, this thing again, hasn't he talked about this 2 or 3 times before already? And the answer is yes. But this one today is a little bit build-to-rent with a little twist. And I don't know how many of you have actually ever looked into this, because I'm suspecting that our audience, the average age of our audience, is more like anywhere between 30 and 45 and not so much older than that. And so what I'm talking about right now is communities where it's deliberately 55 and older. I don't know if you live in an area where they have these what's called 55 plus communities, but the idea is that there are certain criteria and certain things that you have in those communities and certain things that you don't have. Most of the time, when you're under 55 and you have a family and you want to move into a certain development, you're looking for things like a playground for the kids, the community to be relatively close to schools and stuff like that. While for a 55 and older community, you don't really need that. But you need other stuff. You probably want to have some recreational things, like a pool and maybe massage and maybe sauna and maybe some gym stuff and some health facilities and like community facilities, so you can have group meetings and trainings and those kind of things, and all kinds of stuff that people 55 and over would be interested in. Then when you look at the properties, right, when you're looking what kind of properties would people 55 and over prefer, one of the things they definitely prefer, and 55 is a little deceiving because 55 and over means also 65, 75, 85 and so forth, is that people as they get older prefer to have everything on one level. So you're basically looking for single family houses. The other thing is they don't want to have huge amounts of space anymore because typically their kids are out of the house. So we're talking about maybe more in the 2 to 3 bedroom houses, but more nice bathrooms, nice common areas, nice patios, maybe covered patios and terraces and outdoor space and that kind of stuff, depending on where the property is located. So things that make life easy. Also, when it comes to other stuff like flooring, have either hardwood floors or tile because they're much easier to clean than carpets, and on and on and on. So the way the properties would be designed, the build-to-rent properties for 55 and older communities, would be a little different than if you were focusing on families. Now, I have actually asked myself, how is this applicable? And then I thought, well, if I really look at my current portfolio, I come to the realization that the properties that I have bought all existed already for a while and they were renovated by a turnkey provider. And so a lot of them from their original building date are anywhere between 20 and 80 years old. That doesn't mean anything in the context of quality, right? Because a house or a property in general is really as good as you keep it up. How much you make sure that it stays relatively modern, that, like when I bought anything or when our clients buy anything from a turnkey provider, we have typically new plumbing and new rooms and stuff like that. So the original framing in the house might be 50 or 60 or 70 years old, but the house itself that you're using has been renovated several times in that time period. Those properties that I own are basically and have been built originally to support families. And so I'm kind of intrigued in this idea of build-to-rent properties for 55 and older for 2 reasons. The first one is that people who would rent a brand new house that has all these kind of considerations that I mentioned, but they are 55 or older, there is just a history of those people be more dependable in paying their rent. So that's important for us as investors because we want to make sure that we have people in our properties for as long as possible. So if somebody deliberately moves, let's say at 60 or 65 in a new community with brand new houses, they're probably going to live there for a very long time. And that's nice for us because if we don't have any turnover, it's easy for property management. The properties are brand new and the tenants are dependably paying every month. So that's kind of like an investor's ideal scenario. It's also the other, and I said two things. The second consideration is that and I hope we can do this for most of our clients, build what's called a generational wealth portfolio. So the investments are, yes, supporting initially myself and my wife from a perspective of the money past the time freedom point to allow us to live our life without having to work. But the generational and legacy aspect is obviously to say, well, we want to turn this portfolio over to our daughter and then her kids when we are no longer around. And obviously it makes a difference if you turn over a 50, 60, 80-year-old property or something that is maybe 10 or 20 years old by the time I'm going basically 6 feet under. The process would be actually not too hard because we can take our existing properties and our existing portfolio and 1031 exchange them into build to rent 55 plus properties. Those brand new properties are probably more expensive than the ones that we have right now, but it's still a good thing. The only thing that we would really need to wait for, I am definitely going to wait for, and I would advise you to do the same, is for interest rates to come down so that we have basically the chance to lock in really competitive good rates for our properties again, if they are built to rent 55 plus. So that's definitely something to consider. And this concept is relatively new, and you have to keep in mind, why would actually builders consider doing this? Well, there is a huge number of people, my generation especially, going to retire and going into retirement. And not everybody is necessarily interested to remain to be a homeowner. They might be willing to say, or more willing to say, okay, I owned a home in a location that was good for me to work, but not the location where I want to necessarily retire for weather or for whatever other reasons. So I'm looking for a location that is really nice, but if I sell my home and I rent a place in my desired location, I have all this money that I can use for my hobbies or for travel or for all kinds of other things, right? And so renting is in that consideration not necessarily a bad idea. The other option is to say, okay, that desired location could be somewhere where buying a home is just prohibitive. But if you rent it and then use the money from your from your previous sale to afford kind of like nice things in life, that's also an option. Right, so there are a number of things, but I think the biggest one is demographic. There are so many people retiring, and not everybody wants to be the owner of a house. And into these purpose-built, built to rent 55 plus communities, property management will basically handle the whole community, not just one single property. So lots to consider. I'm not saying this is all done and this is all figured out already, but I find it really intriguing. And so I want to ask you what you think about it. Give us a comment, give the show a review and a rating, and download it if you can, because that helps us too. Because I don't know if you're aware, but in podcasting, they count actually the downloads. Not just if you're basically listening to it, but if you download it. So you would really do us a huge favor to boost the show. That's it for today. Be well and stay safe, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.